Hello, everyone, and welcome to another WSI Digital Marketing webinar. Now, before we kick off, we'd like to just do a quick sound check just to make sure you can hear me okay, see our visuals, our webcam. So if you can just let us know by typing into the question box, maybe even let us know where you're located and coming and joining us today, that would be great. Awesome. Oh, Michigan, oh, Finland, Toronto, local, California, great. Thanks so much, guys, for joining us. So again, thank you for joining us for another WSI Digital Marketing webinar. This one is entitled Drive More Sales with Video Marketing. And my name is Cheryl Baldwin. I'm the Director of Marketing at WSI's corporate head office, and I will be your host today. Now, before we dive into the presentation, I just want to go over a couple of housekeeping items because we have some common questions that we get asked along the way. The first one is this webinar is being recorded, and so we will be sharing a link to the recording as well as a copy of the slide deck later on today. And as with all of our webinars, we do like to leave some time for some Q&A. Now, we have a jam-packed session today, but as questions come up, just type them into the question box and we'll try to handle as many as we can at closer to the end of this session. Now, just a little bit of info on who we are. WSI has been around for more than 25 years, and in that time we've helped over 100,000 businesses worldwide and across various industries with their digital marketing strategies. And our goal really is to help businesses grow and to navigate this complex digital marketing landscape. One of the ways that we do that is through webinars like these that are really geared at sharing and educating on best practices across some specific digital marketing topics. Today, as I mentioned, we are going to focus on the topic of video marketing. Now, it's really no surprise that video has become an increasingly powerful tool for businesses. It allows you to communicate your brand story, explain your value proposition, showcase your products and services, and build better relationships with your prospects and customers as well. But despite all of that value it provides, there's still a small percentage of businesses that are leveraging video effectively to help drive sales for their company. And so today, we're taking the time to discuss how video marketing can impact and be leveraged across the customer journey, from identifying prospects for your business, converting those into leads and customers, and then building raving fans and sharing customer success stories. And so joining us as our webinar presenter today to talk more on this topic is our very own Cormac Farley. Cormac is a WSI digital marketing strategist, and he runs a WSI digital agency out of Dublin, Ireland. His team is composed of some highly creative, analytical, and technical individuals that really work with their clients to develop strategically relevant digital marketing campaigns for their business. And Cormac's not new to speaking. He's been on multiple WSI webinars before, but he is also an author in our latest Digital Minds book and penned our second chapter on buyer personas. So I know he's got a lot of information to get through today and a lot of great details to share with you. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Cormac.
Well, thanks, Cheryl, for the kind introduction and a great intro into the session. And thanks, everyone, for joining us today. So as Cheryl said, we've got a great interactive session planned. So I'm just going to get straight into it. We're going to talk a little bit about why video and some compelling stats about why it's more important than ever now to think about video in terms of your marketing. And we'll then talk a little bit about the challenges that some companies face when implementing a video strategy. And we kind of know that when it comes to video, there's lots of different formats to consider. So, we'll help you, develop the use case for video in your organization. And we'll pay particular attention to how video can be leveraged to drive sales, and then closing out with looking at what's next in terms of emerging trends, and finally sum up any key takeaways from the session. So just before we get stuck into it, I know, Cheryl, you've got a poll that we want to put forward to people now to just kind of help us focus on the right areas of the presentation.
Yes, I'm going to launch that
So,
right now.
okay, super. So the question is, how are you currently leveraging video in your marketing strategy? And, you know, we're trying to find out if you're not yet using video in your marketing, maybe it's something you're thinking about getting into, you know, maybe you're getting started with it, and you produce a lot of video, but you don't really have a strategy around it. Or maybe, you know, you've produced video, but you haven't had a success story with it and seen an impact on sales. So it would be great to just kind of get your input and see what the stats look like.
Awesome. Okay, I see stuff coming in. So I'm just going to close this in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So I'm closing and I'm going to share it. So you should see that, Cormac.
Oh, I do. Okay, so interesting. So it seems to be a good mix. So at the beginning, there's quite a number who are just not into video marketing quite yet. Some people getting started with it, but we do have some people who leverage video across the business quite effectively. So super. So I'll try and tailor that when we kind of go through the presentation. So thanks for that. Okay. So if we're thinking a little bit around, you know, why video in 2021, you know, when it comes to marketing, it's really, really important to kind of understand the behavioral habits of our target market. And, you know, why are we thinking that video is a good medium for communicating our marketing messages in 2021? So there's some stats that really kind of jump out at us here. So YouTube has 2 billion users at the most recent count, and that's making up almost 1/3 of the entire global internet market. 77% of Gen Z, 75% of millennials, 61% of Gen X, and even, you know, half of the baby boomer segment are visiting YouTube daily. 70% of Instagram users, so that's like 3/4 of the Instagram population, are watching video content on a daily basis. Social video, that, you know, so that's video on social media, is 12 times, has 12 times more shares than text and image content combined. And, you know, a very recent statistic out from Facebook is that the Facebook live streaming platform viewership, kind of in line with the pandemic, has increased by about 50% in the spring of 2020. So really kind of compelling stats there. And that kind of leads me to the next thing. It's kind of ask the question, you know, why is it that only, you know, we know all of this great stuff about video marketing. So why is it that only 9%, so less than 10% of all small businesses are using video? And, you know, if we kind of come on to the next slide, really the 91% of businesses that are not leveraging it yet, and that's kind of in line with some of the statistics we saw from the poll here earlier, you know, they're missing out on an opportunity. So we can only just assume that the reason it's not being leveraged is that there are some challenges to overcome. So I'd like to spend a little bit of time now talking about the challenges that businesses face when it comes to video, and I suppose most importantly is kind of how do we overcome them. And I suppose the number one problem that we often encounter at WSI when we kind of work with clients around video is that one of the biggest pitfalls is, you know, brands just jump straight into video production without any clear goal or having a plan of action around it. And what's very, very tempting and easy to happen is that attention gets misappropriately placed on kind of the aesthetic considerations that go with producing video. So, you know, everyone puts all the focus on creating this kind of beautiful video asset rather than, you know, thinking and putting a plan together about how video is going to be used to communicate the marketing messages to your target market. And I suppose, let's be really clear here, you know, video in its own right is not a strategy, okay? It's a really, really effective channel for communicating with potential customers, but it does assume that we've done some of the kind of marketing hard work in advance. So we should know who we're targeting, you know, we should know how our product or service can help them, and ultimately, we should know why this potential customer should listen to us in the first place. The next issue that we often come across is that brands don't invest in some sort of amplification strategies. What that means is that they've built a fantastic asset, but it's not being viewed. And video is only effective if you get a number of eyeballs on it, and that the message gets seen and then heard. And it's a very visual format when that happens. So often what happens is that companies will produce this expensive asset, they'll put it on YouTube, they'll embed it on the website, but that's just kind of not enough. And you've got to have some form of an amplification process and strategy behind the video to make sure that it's kind of getting seen by the potential customer. Video communication is another thing. I mean, I think we're trying to get away from the whole concept of very, very kind of expensive workshop-oriented video productions and try and make video more of our everyday. I mean, I think as part of the pandemic, we're all quite comfortable attending, video conferences like this and presentations and webinars. But integrating video communication as part of the company culture is a great first step for companies who are trying to get into the video space and to add it into their marketing. And what we found is that this works really well when it comes from the top. So when the executive team embrace it in terms of even employee communications, right down to customer service, going back to their customer base with video content and so on and so forth. And the final point I'd like to flag in terms of a pitfall is not having a script. So it's often a challenge where, again, it's kind of aligned to not having a plan. But if you don't, a video is a different form of content. I mean, when you're writing a blog or you're putting a white paper or something together, you've got the time to come back at it several times till you get it right. With video, you really do it in one cut, so you can't break it up often into multiple days and so on and so forth. So you need to have a very solid plan before you start. And there's kind of 5 things that every video should have, whether it's a 6-second bumper ad or it's a long form engagement piece of content on video. It should tell a story, it should pose a problem that you've got a solution to, and then you make it easy to understand through examples. And then finally, have a call to action. This is about using video to drive sales. So unless you have a solid call to action, it's not going to fulfill that objective for the organization. So it's kind of key to get your head around that. So other barriers, so talking about challenges still, other perceived barriers to video are, can be summed kind of very easily into 3 things. People or marketers in particular think it's too time consuming, it's too complicated, and it's too expensive. So definitely, going back a number of years, that was the case. And, if you wanted to get a good video, you did need to have a kind of a production crew arrive at your office, set up cameras, make sure the lighting was right, potentially, certainly if it was a TV commercial or something like that, you may need to engage with TV actors and then get a whole professional design put together. But I guess what we're trying to say is that there are ways around that, and that technology can help us now get around some of those issues. And what I wanted to share was some video tools, video marketing tools that I think can really help you kind of ramp up your video effort. So the first one of those is a tool called Promo, and it is really, really good for producing video ads. And often one of the challenges is that companies need to have kind of B-roll video that tells a story. And Promo has a really, really large library in partnership with Getty Images. And it's really good at, like, for example, we're showing an ad there that is for potentially a travel agency, really, really good footage and stuff like that. So you can add in music and so on and so forth to make an ad. The second one there is BigView. And one of the challenges that I think a lot of people face when they're making videos themselves is when they stand in front of the camera and that little white light goes on, right? It's a scary prospect because you feel you've got to take the video in one take. And what BigView does is it's a piece of software you can use on your smartphone, or you can use it through a webcam on your desktop, and it has a teleprompter built in. Now, you'll hear arguments that say teleprompters make your videos look a little bit unnatural, but actually I'd argue that they make them a little bit more professional, and it means you don't go off topic. So BigView is a big one there. Loom, show it, say it, send it. So it's for long form content, fantastic for communications. For example, walking a prospect through a contract or a sales proposal works really, really well for that. And the last one to share is a partner of ours called Vidyard, and it's brilliant for the for the one-to-one sales communication where you want to try and catch up with a prospect. And what's really remarkable about Vidyard is that it integrates natively into LinkedIn, which is another great kind of sales tool. And right within the message panel within LinkedIn, you can just see a little kind of green call out at the bottom. That's the logo for Vidyard, and it allows you to record a video right within your message window in LinkedIn, which is great. So knowing that we've got compelling reasons to get into video, knowing that we've got some challenges there, let's look at some of the different types of use cases within your organization that you can consider video for. And I think what's important is that there are different types of video that are suited for different types of use cases. And visually, I think a nice way to look at this is that you're looking at video content in a way where it supports the customer journey. And we're all familiar with the concept of attracting customers, engaging them, closing them, and then ultimately hoping they'll turn into delightful customers and give us raving reviews, as Cheryl said to begin with. And really, there's different types of video that work well at each of these different stages, and we're going to walk through a number of those today. So the first one starts at the very beginning of the customer journey, and it's really all around the video ad. So that's often the stimulus, and what we're going to share is a kind of a case study that we've worked with a customer to do a new product launch in the UK market. And just before we kind of get stuck into that, I'd like to talk maybe a little bit about how kind of TV advertising has changed over the years. So, I think on the next slide, we're looking at the evolution of TV advertising, and it's probably no longer the case that we sit around the TV watching ads on a Friday evening, but it's now transitioned more into kind of a smart TV scenario where we watch TV on demand. So, we're all very familiar with Netflix and Prime, and even YouTube has its own kind of paid channel. And so what that really means is that, TV viewing behaviors have changed. And what's really interesting about TV advertising is that it's almost come full circle. And now we're in a situation where digital ads, like the type of ads that we put in YouTube, are showing on a big screen and a smart TV. And so we've run some stats across client programs that we've run. And if you look at the bottom there, there's a comparison between 2020 and 2021. And the little green section there represents TV screens. You can see there's mobile phones, tablets, computers, TV screens. And what we've seen between 2020 and 2021 is that the number of impressions, that's the number of ads that have been served up on smart TVs in the house, has increased from 9% to 27%. So that's a threefold increase in just that period. And you can see from WordStream on the top right chart, what they're saying is that people who are watching digital video ads on a TV device have a higher view-through rate. And we're all familiar with watching TV ads on a mobile device. It's very easy to hit the skip button. Whereas if you're sitting in front of a TV at home, it's more difficult to go and get a hold of the remote and skip. So in fact, people watching a smart TV at home are more likely to view your ad than if they're watching it on a smart device. So we've got to take that into consideration when we're thinking about how advertising has changed. So moving a little bit into the case study, this was a challenge that was put to us by a customer who was moving their juice product from a PET plastic bottle to a Tetra Pak carton. And one of the things that we had to do as part of our brief was to build a creative concept that clearly demonstrate the pack change to consumers, because they were concerned that it was going to have an impact on sales. So what we did was we put together a video creative, so effectively like an ad that would show on YouTube and Facebook and other social channels that communicated that change. So I think, Ella, can you play that video now, please, if you can? Okay, I think we're back. So that was a pretty short ad. So we ran a number of different formats off it. One was in 6 seconds, and that one that you just watched, I think, was 15 seconds. And it was to show the bottle turning into a carton. We wanted it to be very eye-catching and kind of get the message across. So if we can move to the next slide, please. So now that the creative was established, we had to set the strategy. And firstly was in terms of relevance, we had to think about the appropriate channels to kind of reach out on. So if we look at the next slide, we focused on YouTube's products. And I'm sure a lot of people on the call are quite familiar with some of the ways that we see ads on YouTube. So we've got what YouTube refers to it as in-stream ads. So it's you're watching a piece of content and it's interrupted for the ad. And the interruption either happens at the very beginning or sometimes in the middle of the piece of content. And usually the ad shows for 5 seconds, like the one on the left-hand side. And if you don't skip it, if you do skip it rather, the advertiser does not get charged for that ad, okay? And the second one on the right-hand side is what's called a bumper ad, and it is a fixed 6 seconds. And it's basically you're charged on 2 different bases. On the left-hand side, you're charged only if somebody watches the entire ad, if it's less than 30 seconds, or if it's over 30 seconds. Okay, so if you come to the next slide, consumers love TrueView, and they think it creates a better video viewing environment, and they're happy to put up with ads, if you want to say that, when they're watching their content, and they find that it's a nice kind of experience. And on the right hand side, because bumper ads are really based on brands who want to spend a lot of effort in getting brand awareness, 33% of YouTube's large advertising customers use 6-second bumper ads, which has been the experience there. So we use a combination of both. But the key is, and this is really important considering that people do tend to skip after 5 seconds, is it's hugely important that you get the brand recall in early, okay? And branding early kind of increases the ad call, and it's important to try and do it in a natural way. So the recommendation, if you can, and like we did in the ad that we created, is to do it via the packaging rather than just via the logo, because it's a more natural way to get that brand recognition in there. So next slide, please. So we can see the video creative that we just watched in its different native spaces. So we kind of ran it on, and that's the good thing about video content. You can run it across channels. We ran it on mobile and desktop, on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. You do need to remember that it runs in different formats. So you need to have vertical, obviously, for mobile and the wider screen for desktop. And some brands opt for a kind of a square version, which allows you to service both pretty well. And then it's always good to back it up. So in our case, we ran a display campaign. You saw the way the graphics kind of changed there with a kind of a GIF file. So quite simply, we're just trying to get the message across that the carton had changed. The next really important thing when you're trying to get your advert out there is reach. Like I said earlier, there's no point in designing a fantastic piece of video collateral if you don't get it in front of the right people. So I love this phrase, content is king, but distribution is queen, and she wears the pants, right? So if we go to the next slide, please. The challenge we initially had was this particular customer had used a number of TV campaigns in the past, and they had an assumption that there's no way that digital could reach the same population of people as the kind of mass media of TV could. But what was interesting, and we're looking specifically at the UK market, if we just go back to that last slide for a moment, when we're looking at it in the UK market, we can see that 41% of the biggest channel in the UK was on ITV, and YouTube actually had the same audience. So I guess in terms of reach, it was just as good. In terms of Facebook, we could reach 43 million people, and moving on from there, we can actually divide it up into the different demographics, so we can see what the reach is going to be at different stages in terms of 18 to 24, right up to what's considered to be the kind of the silver market of 55 and above, and you can see the number of people at each stage. And then what's also interesting about Facebook is the interest targeting on the next slide shows us for this brand how they can be very, very specific on getting their video message out there. It's a health brand, so they're interested in people who have physical exercise, natural remedies, digestion, things like that. So it's a great way to kind of reach the right person with that amplification. And then I guess the final element of a successful video advertising campaign is repetition. So you need to make sure that the message is getting through. And this is, of course, the case when you're trying to grow a brand, is you need to be able to reach the right people, you need to be able to reach them often, and your message needs to be memorable. And if you do all of those three things, you're onto a good campaign. Google, through YouTube, offer a service where they offer an ad recall report. It's called a brand lift survey, and they will interview or survey rather, certain people. They'll have a number of groups. Some will be in a certain group who did not see your ad, a control group. The others will be in a group that did see your ad, and they'll ask the question to see if they saw any advertising over the last 7 days. And that allows you to get how much of an awareness lift the campaign got. So in the case of the industry that we were working in, which was FMCG, the kind of benchmark was just less than 50%. And in terms of the campaign we ran, we got 61%. So it kind of gives you a real metric at the end to know whether it's worked or it hasn't. Okay. So changing gears a little bit, we were talking about how we want to see how we can use different forms of video at different stages of the customer life cycle. So the first was the impetus or the stimulus that we just saw with the ad. The second one is how do we nurture prospects during the sales cycle, and often for B2B companies in particular, this can take several weeks to months to possibly years in case, and you need to make sure that you keep them engaged during that process. So one of the things that we think is a good tip is lots of companies have some great content, maybe in some old blogs, and they're just not getting viewed anymore. So a really effective way, and using Promo, which was the tool I showed you earlier, it's really good for this, is you can tap in to that database from Getty Images of really, really nice B-roll video, and you can put the main messages of the blog on it. So you can see on the left-hand side, we have one of our blog articles, and on the right-hand side, we're effectively turning that into a video. And we saw earlier that consumers are 12 times more likely to kind of engage with video than they are on text, and they're getting the message even if they don't have time to read the blog article. So that's one thing that we'd like to suggest. The other thing to look at is the closing with video, and this is really applicable to B2B companies. At some point, the salesperson needs to get involved, and we all know that LinkedIn is a fantastic channel for engaging with other professionals. And I'm sure a number of people on the call for sure have seen this new feature. It's, when I say new, it's probably there for about 6 months. I think it came in March. LinkedIn introduced this concept of a cover story, and you can see it. This is my profile on LinkedIn, and you can see just on the top left that my face, where you normally have an image, is turning into a video. So what it means is that somebody can click on that and they can get what is effectively a 30-second introduction about who you are and what you can offer them. And I think it's a great opportunity, probably for all of us on the call, to leverage it. So I wanted to take you a little bit behind the scenes as to how I did my cover story on LinkedIn. And one of the questions I always get when I present on this sort of topic is, So you say we don't need any sort of production studio, we don't need a crew coming in. So what do we need to get started with video? And the equipment that I've listed here is all easily available on Amazon. It costs, the entire setup costs usually less than $200. And you know, you can get these elements together. They're plug and play, very easy to use, and it's not essential. I mean, you can get away with just having your smartphone in your pocket, and you know, it's your intro into video. But you know, these elements here do add a certain layer of professionalism about it and end up with a, you know, a more quality output. So next slide, please. So I developed my cover story using the BigView product that we saw a little bit earlier on. So I cheated, okay? So the first thing was on the left-hand side was I had the teleprompter, and that allowed me to get my 30-second script in place. So I literally just pasted it into the teleprompter, sat in front of my computer with the screen pointed at me, and I put up, if you see on the right-hand side there, you can see I have a green screen behind me that I had on my previous chart. So I set that up, and that allowed me to replace the screen with a speaker grill. I could put the WSI logo on there, and then I could get that up onto LinkedIn. So we might at the end of this presentation, if we've got time, it might be something that we can play for you, or alternatively, you just go to my LinkedIn profile. You can see how that works by just clicking on my image. Okay, so still thinking about the customer journey. You know, we talked about starting by attracting people in as strangers. We've talked about how we can nurture them through the customer life cycle. And then we're really, really hopeful that we're going to turn them into raving fans at the end. So if we come to the next slide, a really, really great way to use video is for video testimonials. So typically the pattern would be, again, you can help the client script it out a little bit, so make it easy. I mean, they can do it just to video over Zoom or an interview format or something like that is fine as well. And then you can get that onto your website. So you can see on the right-hand side, it's kind of just showing what the video would look like when you play it. And on the left-hand side is how you can put it on the website and kind of frame it up and use it as an opportunity for other customers and other prospects to see what it's like to be part of your kind of brand and part of your following and your community. Okay. So what I'd like to kind of close out a little bit on is kind of what's next and looking at the emerging trends for 2022. So there's a lot of kind of hot things emerging. The first thing is around a shoppable video. So on the left-hand side is you know, a video by Benetton where they've got a model on the catwalk. And as you watch that video, there's a little kind of heat sensor that shows up on the person, and just if you hover over that with your mouse, it actually takes you right to shop for the product. So we're starting to see a lot of this coming out. I mean, when we look at Amazon Live, you know, a number of brands now are doing live streams on Amazon Live. If you just Google it and look there, these live streams allow you to actually interact directly with the live stream, which takes you to a link to purchase a product on Amazon. Similarly, there's a platform called Buy With, and it's really attracting all of the influencers now. So, you know, let's say you're a fashion brand and you have an influencer who is putting together a live stream to take you shopping with them virtually. So the consumer actually sees the influencer's screen and can go ahead and hit a call to action button and purchase a product directly from there as well. So these are all kind of new ways that are coming, and even on a, if you want to consider it a less sophisticated way, you know, for running kind of events, virtual events, each of the platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc., all have their live stream capability that allows you just to get in front of your audience and share information with them very easily. And the next point then is around short form video. So I think during lockdown and the pandemic, you know, everyone heard about TikTok and how these 30-second bites kind of were very humorous and how addictive it was, that you could kind of go through everything from peeling an onion to, you know, showing how you can play with your dog in the back garden. And YouTube, not to miss out, have released YouTube Shorts, which again is a 30-second video slot, which is kind of meant to be amusing, and it's meant to be kind of engaging. And brands are kind of watching to see how this pans out. But ultimately, I think where it's going to end up is that if you're producing video content, you're producing it in a way where you can easily segment it out into multiple smaller sound bites, because that's the attention span for consumers is an awful lot less than it used to be. So that's the ticket, is being able to kind of command that attention for shorter periods of time. And I guess in association with all of that, we talked through this presentation about amplification, and the importance of it is the growth in video advertising. So that's grown year on year and shows no sign of letting up as well as we move forward. So, I guess finally, just to kind of recap on a couple of points. I mean, the first thing I'd say is that we want to make sure that you have a plan when you're, approaching video. Make sure that you've got a script in advance. Make sure that you get video incorporated as part of your culture, so it becomes an easy way to integrate into your marketing operation. If you produce video, try and use some of those software tools to help do the heavy lifting and reduce the expense and the time-consuming nature of it. And above all, make sure that you amplify the video with some sort of an advertising campaign. And then finally, understand that when you're producing video, where does it fit in terms of the customer life cycle? Is it at the stimulus where you're trying to get attention at the very beginning, or is it more educational in the middle where you're trying to encourage people to understand your brand a little bit better? So I hope some of these takeaways were useful to you today. I think that's all I have to share, Cheryl. So back to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Cormac. I mean, we've got questions coming in, but before we get there, I just want to let everyone know that, as Cormac discussed, video needs to be part of an overall strategy, and you need to have a strategy behind video. And so as that's kind of where a WSI consultant can help you. We have a specific process we go through just to kind of understand the business's a business objective. We call it our internet business analysis, but we're offering all of our attendees today a complimentary internet business analysis. This is an initial free digital marketing consultation meeting to just sit down with one of our WSI consultants to just talk through what your business objectives are. Really, the goal is to have an initial meeting just to kind of understand what you're looking to get out of your video and digital strategies. And from there, we're able to kind of provide a more high-level review and assessment of how video could fit into your strategy and alongside the rest of your digital marketing activities, and provide some additional recommendations. So if you're wanting to take advantage of that offer, I'm just going to post it in the chat. We have a link to a landing page where you can sign up for that, and the consultant that referred you will connect them with you so that you can discuss further. Now, getting into Q&A, I have some questions here. So just going up to the top. Marge was just asking, some of the video tools you went through, Cormac, she was just wondering, do any of these cost anything? And I know the tools you talked about, some have free options, but then there's some levels of payment options. So I'm not sure if you have any specific information to share there.
Yeah, I mean, like all of these subscription-based software packages, usually there's a free option to get you started, and then depending on your use case, you may end up needing to expand it a little bit. I mean, from the ones that we mentioned, the reason why I put them up is because they are low cost. So I think the cost of entry is pretty low, and some of them, like I know for sure Vidyard have a free option of their software. So as long as you keep it at a certain level, a certain number of videos and so on and so forth, it's free. And then some of the other plans are anything from $10 a month and above, depending on the number of team members that you're gonna add in. I mean, I think in terms of promo, they've got an interesting licensing arrangement in that, the real benefit of that platform is the fantastic. Well, first of all, it's pretty easy to use. So they have a number of templates to get you started, because often in our experience, that's the biggest stumbling block. I mean, we said at the beginning that the barrier to entry for video is that it's complex, and sometimes brands and marketers find that getting started is hard. So having templates to get you going makes an awful lot of sense. And then the second thing is, a lot of brands when they're starting off don't have B-roll footage. And what I mean by that is, like right now as an agency, if we're going to our own kind of employee event or a customer event or anything like that, we'll always make sure that somebody is taking a little bit of footage, because we put it into a library and then we know that we have it to use it in the future, which is great. But when you're getting started, you often don't have that. So it's really super to tap into a database of footage that you can just pull out. It looks really professional. And then you can put your own stamp on it by putting your branding and your own message overlaying that. And the cost of getting into it isn't too high.
Awesome. That video that you did with SunSuite, someone was asking what you used to do some of that animation. Was there anything specific there, like tool-wise you used, or?
Yeah, so it was I think primarily produced in Adobe Premiere. So in that particular case, we were, amplifying it out on so many different channels that we wanted to make sure that we had it professionally produced, and so we did that ourselves with a design team to produce it that way. But having said that, I think the way that some of these technologies have developed, in that you can put together something that's pretty much of that sort of level with some of these cheaper tools.
I know we use promo.com as our own video creation tool as well, and they have a lot of different templates and animations that can replicate something very similar to that effect. Yeah. I have an interesting question here, and it was more around, I think, how do you go about targeting a specific audience? So for example, it's really around how do you target a specific audience with your video campaign? So the target market, just as the example that was given, is family physicians in a couple of specific areas within like Canada. And in YouTube and Facebook, would those be the right channels to really kind of zone in and be able to target those level of audience, and how narrow could you get there?
So yeah, great question. I mean, first of all, I think that is the advantage of, video over TV commercials, in that you do have that level of targeting. I think what's also important to remember is that video tends to be at the top of the funnel when you're marketing. So you're trying to get the word out there. So it's kind of, you're not really trying to, make sure that somebody, clicks on the ad and goes through and fills a form. It's sometimes what we find is that brands turn to video when they've already explored maybe what the demand is like for their product or service, and maybe they're getting close to a point where they've kind of exhausted a lot of that. And especially if it's a niche market, like family physicians in a particular geo in Canada, sounds to me like a pretty small market. So maybe it's a good opportunity because you have targeted them, for example, on search, or you've hoped that they're going to come into your customer funnel that way. So absolutely, it's possible to target by geo and then to target by interest. And I think what's also important about video is perhaps they have found you through a different channel, but you can then remarket to them with video. So it's really, really good for the recall, in that they've come to your site at some point, they've gone away, and now you're marketing to them on some other interest-based channel with a video. So that can work really well.
Awesome. And I know, especially in like on these social platforms, sometimes it's recommended to be including, depending on the video, some of the caption text. And we had a specific question on how does that even work a little bit, like, and what are your recommendations on including captions and videos as well?
So I would say 100% yes, right? For a number of reasons. Like if you take the cover story video that I did for LinkedIn, in so many cases, and now I know the use case has changed a little bit because, pre-pandemic, the majority of people were in an office environment, but so many times people are watching your video maybe on public transport, or they're in an environment where they just literally do not want the sound turned on. And if you don't have captions, they have no way of knowing what the video is about, essentially. So that's the first thing. So I think in most cases, it's kind of it's really important. Now, when you think about that cover story that I did, and I showed the example of using BigView, that software actually automatically turns your script. So we said in the presentation that you should always start with a script, because then you're very focused in terms of what you're going to say. But it turns that script essentially into captions, and it places them exactly where you're speaking. So it means the post-production work is really, really easy. All you do is you go in and as you go through all of these different segments, you just line up the captions and they're ready to go. So the other thing to say about YouTube, for example, is that it can make, if you're serving a video to an international audience, you can easily use Google Translate to translate your captions into other languages. So it just means that the adaptability and that amplification of the video can be further.
Awesome. And I'm just watching the time, but I do have a good one last question to ask before we kind of wrap up. And the question is really, how do you know what type of video is going to resonate with your audience the most, right? Is it having an actor on screen, having it animated, writing on a whiteboard? And I think this is really where the power of your buyer persona and understanding your target audience comes in. But maybe you can talk a little bit about how people understand what format would actually resonate the most with their audience.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think, Cheryl, you made a good point. It does depend on who it is that you're trying to target, and starting there by kind of saying, well, okay, I'm targeting Jennifer. Jennifer is a 40-year-old mother of 2 kids who lives in Toronto, and you know, she is perhaps somebody who might attend one of those family medical clinics or something like that. You know, what is it that keeps her up late at night, and then what's she going to react to? So that allows you to maybe match the tone. So, you know, maybe a humorous animated video is not appropriate if it's a serious product or service that you offer. So that's the first thing. The second thing, as I'd say, is you may not get it right first time. So the more important thing is to make sure that you have a process in place for evaluating success. So, you know, one of the issues that we often come across is that the video gets produced, but no one is really sure. You know, all that happens is it's in place for 3 months, and then someone says it didn't work. We didn't get any leads, didn't generate it. So it's important to understand what the job of the video is, and often what it is to take the person to the next stage of the purchase cycle. And you know, measuring that, even if it's on the website, you're saying there's no point embedding the video on a page of the website that nobody sees. So you need to make sure there's traffic coming to it. And then if they do watch it, what are the retention statistics like? You know, if they're bouncing off the video after 5 or 6 seconds, it's not resonating with the sort of people who are coming to your page. So that might make you split test and try a different type of video. So I suppose the whole point and the trust, I suppose, of today's session is that that's okay. You know, some of these tools are making video production a lot cheaper, a lot faster, a lot easier to do. So split testing and working up different examples is a good thing to do. And then when you get the magic ticket, you can do more of that and less of the other.
Awesome, great. Well, so thanks so much for answering those questions. I know we didn't get to everyone's questions, but if you have anything we weren't able to answer today and it's still kind of percolating in your mind, just reach out to the WSI consultant who referred you to this webinar. They'd be happy to answer those for you. Just a reminder, I know we had people asking, yes, this is being recorded. We will share a link to the recording as well as a copy of the slides a little bit later today. So you can expect those to hit your inbox. Just want to remind everyone that if you want to learn any more about digital marketing, we've got a whole book on the topic, and we have a chapter on video marketing in the book as well. And so that's available on Amazon. It's a great just strategic approach to learning how you can connect better and engage better with your customers. I want to just give a big thank you to Cormac for sharing his expertise here today. And thank you all for joining. So Cormac, thanks so much. Lots of great information that you shared there and takeaways.
No problem, Cheryl, and thanks to everyone for joining today.
Great. And so as you leave the session, everyone, there will be a brief survey that pops up. You know, if you can take a few moments just to let us know what you thought of the presentation today, that would be great. feedback is always good for us to kind of improve as well, and make things better, and even see what other topics you would like to learn more about. And so our next webinar is actually going to be happening on October 27th. We're going to be talking a little bit more about tracking your digital marketing ROI. And so we hope you can join us then. Until then, I wish everyone a great day, and we hope to see you on a future WSI webinar. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.